And here we are. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Yang Gang. We are here, Million Council Gang, coming at you live with another show for you tonight. And this one is a little I don't know how to explain this, but it's different. It's a different episode, and so I'm gonna let Elle, the lovely Elle, take it away and explain to us what in the world is video propaganda.
So I've been noticing a lot lately, like on like Twitter and Facebook, like a lot of people tend to share these videos that tend to get like a lot of traction, usually like from TikTok or I don't know, just kind of anywhere. And I've noticed that like they tend to spread like a lot of like wrong information. Like I know that this isn't like really news to anybody, but like I guess like I've just been noticing a lot more. Especially because like I've been, a little bit more, I guess, like researching, candidates and people and stuff like that, and just kind of noticing, just how naive and also just like how influential like these people in these videos are.
Yeah.
People don't really have time, or they claim they don't have time to like read anything and do the research. And, so like people just watch like really funny little TikTok videos and, people share it and they'd be like, oh yeah, that's totally true. That's 100% when that's not the case at all.
Right.
There was like one video I just like have in mind. I don't know who the heck shared it, but it was like a pretty big name, that I see come up on Twitter a lot. Like he has like a blue check. And he like shared or retweeted this video of like this woman who was like playing two parts. I think like being like a Democrat and being a Republican, or being a left wing or versus a progressive or some shit like that. And she was essentially saying like one side's like, oh well, we want like $15 an hour minimum wage, and then like I guess like the establishment Dems or whatever was the side that was like the opposition was saying like, oh well, no, you're not going to get that, but just vote for Biden because we're not Trump. And to be quite honest, one of Joe Biden's policies is to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Yes.
So like it just kind of came off like, wow, so you're just spreading straight up lies then. Like I'm not out here like being like Biden's biggest fan or anything. It was just kind of like, that's just wrong, like, and like, who knows how many people saw this and they were just like, yeah, absolutely. This is funny. This is true. Yeah. Like when it wasn't true at all.
True. And I know that, I know a lot of people, they kind of feel some type of way, whereas like $15 an hour is like, yeah, it's something versus what you were originally getting. And so a lot of people, they tend to want to try to spin it in a way where it's like, well, if I'm making $15 an hour, it's really not going to do much, or you shouldn't worry about wanting to get $15 an hour. Just worry about this main topic and this main issue. And it's like, but I still need to survive. I still need a roof over my head. I still need food on my table. I still need to be able to at least have money in the bank to put gas in my car so I can go to work, And so, and I haven't seen the video, but I've seen videos like that.
Right. They're all over.
Yeah. And so you got to pause and think like, wow, like are really people not really paying attention to what's actually being said in these videos? Are people not really reading in between the lines?
I wouldn't. I don't think so. And that's just a very scary, frightening part. Like we have, just like these quick videos. Not like blaming TikTok or anything. I think TikTok is also like a great way that people have been sharing like a lot of truth, a lot of very interesting subjects and subject matter, has come from TikTok. So I'm not like, just like crapping on TikTok at all. it's just like because of video, like, video platforms like TikTok, like Instagram, like Twitter, like very short snippets, little bites, it's very easy to consume, and you can consume a lot of it, and in a very short amount of time. And while you think that you're not really getting a lot of information, you actually are. You're getting a lot of tidbits of different information from different sources. So, and there's also like the constant, like being told the exact same things, so it must be true. Like, nobody is going to go to JoeBiden.com and look at his policies and read through his policies, even though they technically should. Same for Trump as well, but they do know that no one's going to do that. Like, people would rather just listen because we're all focused on a million other things. Like, like our viewers are fantastic, but I'm sure we're probably like the little square on like the bottom right of their screen. And they're probably just like scrolling through Twitter and like like doing it, which I don't mind. Like I love you guys all the same.
Oh, yeah. Agree, but let's not forget that we still love you.
Right. But I totally understand. I've done the same thing with other streams and videos. But like like the point again, it's like because they know that you're not going to read, you're not going to like. You may not have time to go to like a rally, especially now in COVID. And if you keep hearing it from like everywhere, then it must be true. And when that's not always the case.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like, propaganda. That's essentially propaganda. Modern day propaganda.
Toby, what's happening, homie?
Yes.
Hey.
What's going on? Yeah, I heard you guys was here talking, and I figured I'd let you guys finish your train of thought. Were you guys just kind of starting off?
Yep.
Yeah.
Starting off.
I guess what was the first sort of yeah, go ahead.
I would say because she just kind of like literally walked us into video propaganda, what it is, and how people had to be aware and cautious about what's going on, especially now with this current election cycle where literally everything is literally based upon a vote. Really, if people want to take this thing seriously, everything is hanging on a vote. Meaning my vote, her vote, your vote, Gang's vote. The Bernie Bros vote. The Trump supporters votes. Like, it's literally everything is hanging on the vote. And so here we are, gonna weed in and out through the right stuff, the correct stuff, and the best way to go about it. On you, Toby.
Yeah. So I guess when it comes to all on me. Yeah. So this video and these videos, I was thinking of a few things. One was that I've been like something that's really, because it's really the confirmation bias, right? You want to believe something is true so that you will kind of selectively see the things that seem to make sense, even if it's not literally true. Like you said, was that $15 per hour? I need to look at Biden's policies more, to be honest, myself, because something that was said during the primary was like maybe 13% or some ridiculously small percent of Americans will even look at a policy page, or voters. So really? I don't remember where the data was from, and I really should find and source it. But you just yeah.
You got your thought. I got you, homie. I got you.
I remember because it was, I guess people were trying to, in the Yin Gang, were talking about how, like, obviously policy and attention to detail is great, but a lot of the arguments and the persuasions were going to be outside of people going to a policy page. Like, you'll have a hyper engaged sort of primary voter, in this case a general election voter. You might have a hyper engaged voter, but I think a lot of people have made up their minds, like 80-something%, maybe 90%.
Yeah.
So the kind of people have been, gone to their respective corners. I mean, of course, you have the Republicans who are supporting Biden too, but people have kind of gone into those corners. So, I mean, it's interesting to see how disinformation and misinformation will affect the people who have already made up their minds. In some cases, it may have been the people who've decided not to vote. Like there could be people who just made up their minds. I'm not supporting them because they're equally as bad. And so when you see something that's like, oh, Biden doesn't support all these things, you naturally are going to want to believe it. And again, I kind of like what you said. I'm not, here as a Biden stan, or I'm not here caping for Biden, really. But I'd rather just discuss the things that are actually true, but people want to believe certain things. And now there are people who really don't support Biden because they do find certain things like, oh, corporate back. He's not fundamentally trying to change anything. There are people who believe that he's too representative of the status quo and they believe that that's harmful. That's a separate kind of thing. And that's like,
Right.
that's your decision. You have your beliefs with that, but there are people who will literally use, false things that just aren't true based off of, you could go to the policy page. People I know would say that Biden's the most progressive, like, I guess when it comes to the actual nominated Democratic nominee, he's the most progressive platform. In fact, he had the task force with Bernie to actually come up with more progressive policies. So I don't know if he fully embraced the Green New Deal, but he at least said we'll get to energy. We'll get to, I guess, carbon neutral energy by, it was some year
or 2050.
So I know there's a timeline that the progressives and really the Green New Deal sets out. He was either 5 or 10 years after that.
Okay.
So it may have been 2035 instead of 2030.
Okay,
and that's still yeah, I mean, it could have been 2040. I just remember though it was 5 or 10 years, and things like that don't necessarily get highlighted as much. In fact, Trump and his campaign, they've been trying to say, oh, look at what Biden just did. It's so horrible. The Midwest, how are you going to come to Pennsylvania? Really, he focused on Pennsylvania with that one, that how you're going to come to Pennsylvania and say you're going to take their energy jobs. But it's just weird that, like, clearly they noticed that, oh, he's shifting more left. He's being pushed left, and he's a Trojan horse, or like, being manipulated by the left. But then a bunch of people on the left or other parts of the political spectrum will just see that Biden is the same as Trump, or this doesn't, like, it's just like clearly disregarding things that are true about Biden. And again, you can have your opinion on whether it's enough, whether fundamentally he's just not a good candidate, yada yada, but you can't just kind of believe like literal lies about, like,
right.
that he's not supporting any environmental reforms, or he's not trying to raise the minimum wage, or he's not. I do think that he did say that he wasn't going to raise taxes really on anyone over $400,000.
But no, he's going to raise taxes over $400,000. So anybody making under $400,000 will be fine.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, 400, that way. Yeah,
400,000. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, even that is pretty like, maybe standard. Like, I don't know if people wanted people to raise tax. I don't know if progressives wanted taxes to be raised on people even under 400,000, because but I guess the point is that there are a lot of things that I feel like are there in the platform, and people just have to take the time to look, just like you were saying, Al, and then get like a real comparison of, well, is this enough? What can you push more? Like, there was a quote about, I think it was Angela Davis. Someone was saying, someone very prolific was like, vote for whoever you think is easiest to organize against. And I mean, clearly, if Biden is malleable enough to start going in a certain direction, then maybe that's the move. Or let Trump get reelected and then see how easy it is to get anything in that point. But I rest my case.
I did want to touch on like what you said, how like people on the right, or like advertisers on the right, are saying how, like, Biden's like this super left-leaning guy. He's gonna go so left. People are controlling him, and like the people who are like very progressively on the left are saying that he is not left at all, and that he's like moderate, like low-key Republican. And I feel like what's interesting is that, like, since both sides are kind of, like, they're not necessarily saying the same thing, but they're like, speaking badly about Biden, saying like, just like in a negative connotation, a negative tone. So that kind of, does even more confirmation bias, where like, oh, he's doing this, and then somebody's saying like the opposite. So it's kind of right. So it's just like contradicting. So it just kind of constantly just like feeds into that just negativity. So like no matter where you go, you'll probably just hear like, if you see people on the right, they're talking negatively about Biden. If you see people on the left, they're talking negatively about Biden. And yeah, it's true. Now people definitely, I guess, mostly vote on their feelings.
Yep.
Right, for sure. There it is.
This is true.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna take a stab at this too, because I had a very similar conversation with my mom, and she was asking me about one of the candidates that's running here in Michigan, and she was like, "Well, do you guys know?" She asked me, "Do you know about John James?" Now, if people don't know who John James is, John James is a Republican running for U.S. Senate in the state of Michigan. Okay, he's a black guy. He's a black guy. He's a veteran. Family has roots here in Michigan. Yada yada yada. And the one thing that he says, like clear as day, is he's 1,000% behind Trump. Like Trump could do no wrong in his eyes. That's what he says, and he supports him. And so my mom asked, I'm like, yeah, he supports Trump, because I guess he has a bunch of commercials out. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah, you'll be surprised. Like the man feels as though Trump has did no wrong, that Trump is probably one of the greatest presidents ever, and that he is going to help bring back jobs back home to Michigan, which Michigan, as many people have can come to mind, Michigan was home to the big three, still is, but a lot of the production that the big three had, they downsized. So
what are the big three, like the Rust Belt you're talking about, like GM, Ford,
Chrysler? They're all centered. They're all, a lot of their headquarters is centered in Michigan.
Right, Michigan, Detroit, right.
A lot of their production was centered in Michigan, and since we'll go as far back as 2008, when a lot of the jobs started, especially the manufacturing jobs, when they started leaving, it took a huge chunk out of that Michigan economy. And so a lot of Republicans, and again, the one in particular, Fred Upton, they've been trying to get back the manufacturing jobs back to Michigan, but no, it has not. Like I've seen more jobs leave than come back. Okay. Seriously, I've seen more jobs leave than come back. And it's like, this man is promising to bring back the manufacturing jobs. Like, dude, to where? I mean, Detroit is crippled right now, and a lot of the production happened in Detroit. You got Flint, another huge one that had like numerous of GM plants. Again, crippled. Saginaw, crippled. Grand Rapids. They had some plants there, but then again, those plants, they're gone. There's not a whole lot of manufacturing, especially when it comes to automobiles. There's not a lot there. So what manufacturing job are you trying to bring back? Because right now, the state that Michigan is in is bound to go to something else. It has to, in order for residents to survive. And so that's why I explained it to her.
What do you mean it's bound to go to something else?
Like, if like
politically wise, or about to like a different like career wise? I'm sorry.
Like I'll put it like this. Let's say GM it keeps the number of employees that it has on the books, and it keeps the number of production teams on the books. Okay. There's so much open space for natural energy to be implemented here in Michigan. I can see that happening. I can see Michigan using the Great Lakes and do hydroelectricity. I can see that. I can see parts of Michigan, go and do a a nuclear reactor. I mean, we got one. We got one here. It's along the lakeshore. You know, it's been fairly safe. I can see that happening. I can see Holland, Michigan have windmills and use the energy from the wind to power homes. Solar energy. We could go through there. You know, there's so much that potential that could happen. It's just we need the right people in office to make that happen. And if they keep on relying on doing the same old, thinking it's still going to work, like, no, it's not going to happen like that.
Right.
You're going to see a lot more people struggle now versus, you know, you go with the time of change. You go and you know, make something work that suits them versus telling them, oh, you can't do this because of blah, 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 blah. But if you go back to school and you get a trade and you do this and you do that, then you go back and become more marketable. It's not really going to happen. Well, most folks, they're probably at the age where they want to retire. They want to kick back. They want to relax. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor and not have to worry about going back to school to learn something in order for them to keep on working past retirement age. You know? And so, and again, these are the conversations I have with my mom all the time. And she's like, you know, I got to do a little bit more research. I'm like, yeah, you might want to. Like, is there some things he brings up that is really good? Like, sure, but I'm not sold on him. And I know because he's 1,000% behind Trump, I can't vote for him. I won't vote for him. Like, nah, I'm good. I'll stick with Mr. Gary Peters. He sounds a little bit more reasonable in sound, so I'm good.
Is Gary Peters the incumbent?
Yes, he is.
Okay. There's
is the incumbent, and then also Debbie Stabenow. She's also a senator from Michigan, and her seat isn't up yet, but still, is like. We see this all the time, every election cycle here in Michigan. You see, oh, we're gonna bring back the manufacturing jobs. You're gonna bring back the manufacturing jobs. It's like, no, you don't. I've seen Martin leave. Which ones are you trying to talk about? Which ones are you talking about? You know? And I can see Mark. He said he's been to Saginaw. Like, yeah, I mean, dude, the last, I'll put it like this: the last time I've been to Saginaw and I was just passing through, like literally just passing through Saginaw, I didn't see a whole lot. I didn't. I didn't see a whole lot. You know, my brother, my sister-in-law, they got, of course, my sister-in-law, she got family in Saginaw. And even still, like, she's like, it's really not, Saginaw is really not the same anymore. It's really not.
So interesting. There are two things that I thought from what you were saying. One is kind of like the lack of engagement that a lot of people have, and which is what makes you more susceptible to this kind of propaganda, or just like there's like maybe a sense of hopelessness. You're just not that engaged, so you hear something, and it's actually interesting because like Kim Klacik lady who was running in Baltimore was saying like Democrats is trash. Look at everything they've done. Even when Elijah Cummings had started investigating Trump because he was the head of the House Oversight Committee, Trump was like, Baltimore is, you know, rat infested mess, whatever. But like, there's nothing new being brought to the table. People could, I mean, now I don't know if those messages really resonate in those deep blue cities, but people try to kind of stir something up with these very maybe well-made ads or these poignant statements. But then it's like, okay, what are the actual facts and what is going to be your policy position to actually do something different? Now that's like on the sort of Republicans running against Democrats piece. With nothing to offer, but it could work. It could pull at people's hearts, or it could be a very powerful statement. But then it's like, wait, but what are the facts behind this? The other thing you also mentioned was because you mentioned kind of how people need to do more research, but also politicians will say anything sort of to get elected, which I guess kind of goes along with that same point. So you're gonna claim to bring back the manufacturing jobs. Now, of course, for the Yang people, we are very familiar with all of this, how you can just say anything, but then it's like, no, sir, you have to have not a sense of hopelessness, but a sense of realism of the trends are not getting better. If the jobs are leaving because of, trade deals are definitely part of it. I think especially with some of these plants, there are plants that get sent to other countries, but obviously automation is going to be the biggest factor as time keeps going forward. Then it's like, okay, maybe we should be a little more honest and assess things rather than just saying, yeah, I'm going to bring back the manufacturing jobs because I know that's what you want to hear. Maybe we do need a bit of, these jobs aren't exactly coming back. We need to chart a new path forward.
Right.
I think a thing, though, is kind of the political environment. Sometimes maybe people think that it's just that you can't say that because it's not politically, I don't want to say politically correct because that's not the term I want to use, but it's not a politically good thing to say. So instead, you'll kind of say what you think people want to hear, which then leads to more propaganda. Even if you know that that's not like a realistic policy. I mean, what did Trump say about building the wall and making Mexico pay for it? Did that make any kind of sense to anyone? And when Mexico,
I guess because like he was saying how like Mexico owes us some kind of money, and that therefore they would like that's how they would pay for it.
And and the question is, have they done it? No.
No. Has the wall been built? Kinda.
It's just I think so. I think on that end, he was maybe saying that Mexico, maybe something with the tariffs would actually be a way that
something like that.
Something like the tariffs was an indirect way of paying for it, or I mean that's that is what it is. It's so funny because that's been such like a non-issue in the last year and a half almost.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's talking about it.
No one talks about the wall, and like he did shut down the government because of a wall 2 years ago. That's crazy. That was 2 years ago.
I feel like it was not as long, but also longer at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was you said what was not as long.
Like him shutting down the government for the wall. Like I felt like it was a long time ago, but like not a long time ago at the same time.
Yeah,
that's how this whole year has been. Like I can't believe it's September. But anyway.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's insane. September 8th, right? Oh. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh
man. This is a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, QAnon, so I used to do like improvisation. And the pretty much improv is built on like the concept of yes and. So like yes and is like what builds up this fake this fake story of whenever you're acting with you and your scene partner. Mm-hmm. So I always feel like conspiracy theories are just kind of like there has to be somebody in improv, like an improvisationist who like helps come up with these conspiracy theories, because it was just like, oh, there's a massive child sex ring. Yes, and it's in a pizza place. Yes, and Hillary Clinton knows about it. Yes, and they drink children's blood. Yes, and like they just keep it just seems like it just keeps building up and building up.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
So, right. So like what Belladonna was saying, like that fighting, like, so the thing about conspiracy theories is that, you think of like just like the biggest, craziest thing and like something that like is universally hated by everyone, like pedophiles, child sex trafficking. Everybody hates that. Like no one's just like, I'm cutting. No, like everybody hates that. So, to like think of and like imagine something like that, is happening, and like it's it's been kind of scary because that has been proven with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So like it is like quite frightening how like this is quite true.
Yes.
It's even crazier where it was like a private island, freaking down the street from me. Anyway, but like, yeah.
Oof.
No, like side note, watching that documentary on Netflix was scary because those women that that were like abducted were like probably like 3 years older than me. Like they were, I could have easily have gone to like high school with them, kind of thing. So like that was just mind blowing. Anyway.
Yep. That's a good one. Thank you, Belladonna, for that one. Thank you for that. We'll probably ask the chat more questions as this thing goes on, because the one thing we have to keep in mind is that not everybody is going to tell us the whole truth. That I've came to understand, especially when it comes to election time. they're not going to. And if you're able to get that candidate and sit down with that person and talk to them about what are you really wanting to do, what are you really trying to do, and have that dialogue, I think there you can see where those true intentions come. Now, let's be clear and let's be real. We may not get that chance with every candidate. Some people want to say no, and then you got some who's going to dodge the question and go off and say something else that does not make sense, that's irrelevant to what's going on now. It's going to happen. But the ones that are more so transparent enough to be like, hey, this is what I'm running for. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to change because I see the direction that we're going is not right. I'm trying to make us do a U-turn. Okay, cool. Go for it. Which is why, ladies and gentlemen, do research before you go vote. Do research. We cannot stress this enough. Do your research. Do your own research. Fox News, they're going to spin it one way. MSNBC, they're going to spin it another way. CNN, they're going to spin it another way. Your local news, they're going to spin it another way. Do your own research. So before you go to the polls, do your soul some justice. Do the research. Know who to vote for. And if you know the person in your community is local, definitely vote for that person. But at the same time, sit down and have that conversation with that person and see what their plans are. So we don't fall into this propaganda state mess that we find ourselves in and fall for that false narrative, because we know, hey,
holy crap, we have a Mayank?
Yes.
Wow.
What's up?
This is like hella royalty right now.
Oh, wait a second.
This is awesome. I like this. I like this.
Yeah.
It's so, again, you guys, do your research. Do your research. Do your research. Because it's going to help. Like I said, my mom, again, me and my mom, we talk, and she's been telling me that this is the first election cycle that she's been involved in, that she's making a conscious effort to find out who these candidates are, what they're all about. So when she goes to the polls, she can vote in good conscience and not feel bad about it and not feel screwed about it and not feel as though, oh, if I don't vote this way, then I'm going to get shunned, And I feel as though that's needed. Oh, that's very much needed.
For sure.
Yeah. True, Mark. Yes, there is a huge disconnect. And again, another conversation. It was me, my mom, my brother, and my sister. And my brother, he actually, he said, Ronnie, he said, how do you identify yourself? Do you identify yourself as a conservative or a liberal? Do you identify yourself as a Republican or a Democrat? Like, well, I got views from both sides. Like, I do have some conservative views, but I also have liberal views. So he was like, so like, but I'm not a strong Democrat. Like, I'm not a strong Democrat. Like, yes, I will support a Democrat over a Republican any day, especially if I can get a chance to know that person. Yes, I will. But at the same time, I find myself more Democrat than Republican. So it's like, so you said it's safe to say that you're a moderate? Like, pretty much, yeah. I could say that. Yeah, moderate. Maybe progressive because of the fact that it's like, I don't like what I'm seeing that's happening right now, and I want things that's going to push us ahead rather than keep being behind that 8-ball and figuring out, oh, holy crap, what we're going to do to get away from it. It's right there, but we don't want to be critical thinkers and think outside the box. So it was a good conversation, really good conversation. And again, don't feel as though, folks in the chat, folks that's watching, don't feel as though that you have to identify one way or another. You are a free thinking person. You have every right as anybody else in America. You do what you got to do for yourself. Do what's best for you.
No, for sure. Mayank did just post something saying that misinformation is so crazy right now. We got to talk to our friends and family. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people, you know, like I'm sure like your friends and family are still kind of like not really on the pulse of politics, even like right now where we feel like it's like so dire and like some of us
Mhm.
probably just can't wait to vote. Like,
So I-
right. So like, you know, I'm sure there's some who are just kind of like, oh, you know, like what's going on? You know, like they're still just like unsure, like,
Mhm.
you know, not at least like they, you know, of course they probably know about the president, but like also all the other, you know, people like who are running and things like that.
Mhm.
But, you know, especially for like primaries, and I feel like people like overall are becoming more like cognizant and
Mhm.
aware to like, you know, research and, you know, really vote for, you know, like local and, you know, midterm primaries
Yes.
and things like that. So which is great, you know. But absolutely for sure, you know, even during just like primaries or local elections or midterms, like, you know, do your research and definitely absolutely tell your friends and family about it.
Yes.
Because like I am sure that, you know, they may have, you know, like, you know, have some friends who would be like, oh, this candidate sucks. You know, like their friends will tell them that. And then, you know, you could be like, hey, actually, no, that's that's not the case. Actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And for sure, if you have the chance, definitely try to meet, like, especially local candidates, just to get a feel for them.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. You'll be surprised. The most local candidates that are running, they're probably like the most down to earth people that you
Yeah.
ever meet. And their intentions, they're true and they're pure because they see what's going on. They've probably been there, lived there for like I don't know how long. Deja, what's
Oh
happening?
yeah.
Yeah.
What's Hatton?
Deja, what's
I'm like,
happening?
who's this? What's up?
Yes. And you'll be surprised. A lot of them, they will actually will listen to what you have to say and actually take what you have to say into consideration. And especially if it aligns with what they're wanting to do, what they're trying to do. Oh, that's an added bonus. You're in there.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
You are.
And
Go ahead, Tony.
yeah, I remember because right now I'm in Massachusetts, but I grew up in Maryland. But I remember when it wasn't my district, but there was a candidate, Alex Morse, who was running in Western Mass against Richard Neal, who was a very big player in Democratic politics in the House. So I remember Yang had endorsed Richard Neal either last month or probably in July, but it was still like not super far away from the Mass primary, which was last week. Literally September 1st was Mass's primary. And I remember Yang had said on a live stream, or like it was either a fundraiser or like an interview, something with Alex Morse. I believe he was saying how like he had huge respect for him because Morse was Morse was the mayor of a town called Holyoke, and it's probably not a huge town in Western Mass, which is not close at all to Boston, literally on the other side. So it's a smaller little town, and he was running as a progressive or for Medicare for all these things. And Yang was saying how, yeah, you as a mayor and like getting involved in local politics, like that's like some of the most genuine people because you don't run and break your back to basically serve in that level. You're not really getting a ton of recognition and fame. You're running for what, city council, mayor, you know, whatever elect them in. If you're running for these type of smaller positions, like you're really like there's something that you're like, yeah, you have to get something together and change what you're seeing. So it is very involved. It is very, what's the word? It's very imperative to get involved in that, and connect with the real people, because sometimes people are just disengaged in the community because no one has really, you know, spoken to their needs. Maybe they're just catering to whatever
Or
political
like,
machine is there.
or like, you know, they may have just like definitely just like heard things and, you know, just from like little quick 20-30 second videos of like the opposition or, you know, just I don't know, random celebrities or, you know, just people talking about it and like, you know, they just become disengaged or uninterested or just think that this person is not for them when like they actually could be, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is when you haven't really gotten a solid position, something
Mhm.
like that, like an opposition or whoever, celebrity endorsement. You can be like, wow, okay, this person who I respect is either, saying I should vote for this person, or like you just hear like you see a negative ad and you're like, ooh, that I didn't like that. Maybe I shouldn't vote for this person that this negative ad was about. I personally don't really see ads much because I have I have like ad block on my computer, YouTube Premium. And so it's just like I don't see political ads. I never saw those Bloomberg ads except on Snapchat. God, those ads. Anyway, that was a different time. So for me, I don't really get to see like a bunch of things that are swaying. I do remember the Ed Markey race versus Kennedy, which got some national attention. It was like it was such an interesting race, and I would get mail that was like mostly from Markey, but some from Kennedy. And it's like if you don't really have a strong position, you can get swayed one way or another.
Right.
But then you kind of try to crowdsource opinions as much as you can. Try to find people that are reputable, independent voices. Oftentimes, are helpful. And then the video propaganda has a bit less of an effect. But sometimes it can be a starting point to at least fact check. Like you can be like, this is a very strong claim. This is a very like, all exclamation marks. This looks like the spam kind of like, okay, if someone has a claim this strong or this sketchy, that might be like a point where I at least say, let me fact check this very propaganda sounding thing and see if you agree with it or not. So at least don't just see it and then think, okay, this person said not to vote for XYZ, so therefore don't. But it can be a good place to at least start looking at certain issues, look at certain records, and try to do as much of your own judgment. But there's not a specific formula. It's, I'm still figuring it out. I haven't been able to vote. I guess it's been 7 years since I turned 18, but there haven't been that many election cycles since then. So I'm still figuring out, like, I think literally last week was the first local, like, state primary I've ever voted in. So there's still kind of a lot that I'm deciphering and filtering out and figuring out, what should my choice be. But yeah.
Nice. Speaking of, it's funny you mentioned that, Toby. I messed around, was on Facebook earlier today, and somebody messed around and got a hold of the records for the 1994 crime bill. Oh, yeah. So on that bill, and he made a cartoon about it too, and on that bill, it shows that Bernie Sanders, he actually voted on that one.
Yeah.
He voted as a yay. And so I'm like, man, yeah, right. And he sent the hyperlink. So I looked on the hyperlink, I clicked on it, and again, this part of your research. And so I went on there. Of course, I saw Fred Upton. I saw a bunch of other Democrats and Republicans from the state of Michigan that some said yay, some said nay. But I was scrolling down. Lo and behold, independent from Vermont. Bernie Sanders, yay! Wow.
I think there was a lot of things on that 1994 crime bill that wasn't just that was the 3 strikes you're out thing, right? From Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was part. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Right.
So the interesting thing too about that, and we actually have really wanted to talk about the crime bill and certain things that just don't, some things about the dialogue that should be brought up. And I think it would be a great thing to have a separate discussion on, especially since Biden is the nominee, right? So being able to talk about some of these crime, like these drug laws and other things can help explain how we got here. Like there is a lot of things that are not out there. Like, yeah, Biden, of course, voted for it, or he really wrote it. You had the Clinton administration that signed it. Hillary Clinton with her, good old super predator comment. That was wonderful. And then you had Bernie Sanders, who did vote for it, which he gave a big caveat that there was some violence against women or something that he felt like was important enough. But he did warn apparently about the effects that it could have on incarceration. Yes, he definitely was a yay vote, and that record is there. But it's interesting to kind of see what circumstances were surrounding it. And like, sometimes that's another thing, is the full picture isn't always seen of like what happened with some of these legislation. What was the context? The effects could be very bad, but sometimes it's good to at least see why certain things were even talked about or done. Like, why did people feel like this was a good bill to do in the 90s, like decades after the civil rights movement? And I'm not going to be one to defend the crime bill in itself just because of its effect. But it was really interesting when I kind of looked up some of the background and people who supported this bill. But like I said, that I'll have to talk more on that on a separate on a separate stream.
I think we can make that happen. We're flexible.
Yeah.
We can make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like, I mean, and I agree. I totally agree, because I remember watching the movie 13th, and a lot of what was said there, it made sense. It then, when I look back growing up in the 90s as a kid and whatnot, I can recall a few things that happened. I'm like, really? That's going on? But not necessarily knowing why it was happening or why it was going on. And so as I became an adult, have my own kid, own family and whatnot, and I'm able to kind of be a part of society in a way where I can make grown-up decisions and have grown-up consequences that follows behind that, it does put things in a lot of perspective. In trying to figure out, okay, let's revisit and see why it was done the way it was done, and let's see what we can do to move forward. And if we have to dismantle it, let's do it. If not, let's see what we can do to kind of like gut out the parts that need to get gutted out, and possibly, make it work for the 21st century, and have it, I don't know, enforced properly. No, that kind of thing. So yes, agree, Toby. Yes, we will make that another subject matter to talk about, because I mean, it's important. And like you said, you're absolutely right. With Joe Biden being a nominee, with him, being the main one that spearheaded it, we have to talk about it. We have to bring it to the light, and we have to, do as much research as we can to shed more light on it. Because what a lot of people, especially Black folks, what a lot of them, they won't do is they won't do their own research. They'll take it from the word of mouth and think it's true. Okay, fine. But sometimes you may have to do that dirty work and spend hours trying to research just so you can make sure that you have a clear conscience and that you're not being misled, and that, as the title of this video shows, you're not another victim to this video propaganda mess that then got so many of us twisted upside down, inside out for the last past, who knows how long, years, decades.
Yeah. And just to say that, like, we're all susceptible to propaganda, to video propaganda, to be swayed, to like, think differently or one way or the other. Because we're all human. Like, none of us are like better than anybody else. Like, doesn't matter, how quote unquote smart we are, how many degrees we have, or what have you, however you calculate intelligence. We are all susceptible to, just propaganda, to fake news, to inaccuracies, to falsehoods. If, especially if we hear it so many times, and it's like, well, it must be true then. So, yeah.
All right, chat. We've done some talking, and we've done asked you guys questions. We're going to flip the gears for like the next 10 minutes or so. And so we want to hear from you guys. What are some questions in the chat that you have, and especially when it comes to video propaganda or propaganda in general? What are some thoughts that race kind of through your mind as we're having this discussion? This is your time, ask away. And we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can, and understand that, this is for you guys. This is for everybody that's watching. Thank you for the subscribers. Thank you for the people that like this video, that's been following us since day one. We appreciate you guys so much, but at the same time, we still want to hear from you guys, your thoughts, your questions, your ideas, so forth and so forth, because at the end of the day, we want you to walk away with some kind of knowledge, some kind of empowerment, knowing that, okay, when I go to the polls and I go and vote, I'm good. That I'm going to vote with a clear conscience. And even if you don't vote, let's say next year you decide you want to run for office. Okay, boom, there you go. Now you know what you need to do to make sure that you send out a clear message to those people that you want to represent in your local community. While we're waiting, so how is school going for everybody? How is life going for everybody this time around? I'm back in college.
Oh, okay, yeah. Nice.
Oh wow.
Yes, I'm back in college. And
when I asked like how school is going, I'm like, who's in school?
Yes, that's right.
I'm sorry, I'm a late bloomer. Okay, I should have started earlier in life, but I waited till later. But no, seriously,
I respect it.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people that I know, they're starting school now. A lot of the kids are starting school now, and I know a lot of cities and a lot of states, they're kind of like starting roughly around about the same time, if it hasn't been delayed about a couple of weeks. So, excuse me. So just trying to get thoughts out there, try to see like as far as your local school district, how things are going and how the universities are handling life in COVID.
Here in South Florida, like they're saying, like because like COVID trends are going down, at least down here, supposedly. That schools might like K through 12 schools might open up in October. I was kind of for the next quarter because they go in quarters. I'm used to like semesters from college, but like I was hoping that they would wait until like January at least, But like, but I like I understand why you want to and need to like open up schools. It's just like. Like it's just going to be like practically impossible to like not prevent COVID from spreading because like once the kids can go back to school, then like the parents will probably start going back to work for in some cases, some companies, also some parents will go back to work because they're teachers or like faculty or the cafeteria workers or something, so that they will go back as well. And some people might start searching for jobs if they lost their jobs. Some people will start doing things. So like I feel like, COVID's going to like inevitably spread again. Like I don't think there's any way to like prevent it because when you give people an inch, especially in South Florida, if you give people an inch, they'll take, I don't know, like a mile. So I was like, what's longer than a mile? I don't even know.
Yeah. It's like, that's not even enough.
It's not. I was like, yeah. So I don't know, like what's going to happen. I know that in my alma mater, Florida State, I read that we had like 850 COVID cases. I was like, what? It's like that's a lot because like Tallahassee is a college town, so like the schools FSU and FAMU, the HBCU FAMU, that's like the whole city. That's like the
wow.
So like
that's very concerning.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean that's Tallahassee, like they're at the top of the state.
Jeez.
So
jeez.
Yeah.
Actually, I just looked something up because it's like personally, I don't know as many people in terms of like, people with kids who are going back to school. So I'm very much out of the loop of sort of like the public K-12 school system, especially here in Massachusetts. Because even though I live here, I'm not actively engaged with a lot of the communities. But it looks like Massachusetts says that school will be in person 2 days and learning at home 3 days a week.
Okay.
So that's what they actually meant by hybrid, because I've heard that term a lot, like hybrid plan. I see that actually works. I can respect that because being home 5 days is a lot. But even if you're in for a few days, I just wonder like how you do the prevention of spreads. if any, yeah, it's an interesting. Obviously, it's like the big dilemma that the educators and teacher staff are all worried about.
Yeah.
And what I actually saw was outside of high school and outside of public like K to 12 school. I was seeing things about college a few days ago. Apparently, like college towns, like you said about Florida State, like I think Alabama. I think Tuscaloosa is the town that has University of Alabama. So Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Then you have Auburn. You have what's the other big one? Like Iowa State. You have all these different universities in like some areas that states that are even have a bit more rural populations. They have huge spreads. Like I want to say 2,000 plus people got COVID from University of Alabama. And I mean, how long has the semester been? Like 2,000 plus cases in how many weeks? A week and a half, 2 weeks? I don't even know. It's crazy. And what they were saying was they actually were urging people or telling them you have to go home if you have COVID. So you have to go home to your families. You have to like leave campus. And I'm like, wait a second.
They don't want that lawsuit.
So now it's like, wait a second. So the schools, okay, they're trying to prevent. Yeah. So there's the legal ramifications. They're also trying to prevent within their own local community the college town spreading. But then you're gonna then put it back into other communities where they came from.
Right. Exactly.
So now it's not isolated anymore just to universities spreading, which okay, sure, ethically, like you're not trying to force spread COVID in the university, but then you're now putting it back into people's communities. So that's crazy. So I'm just glad I'm not in school anymore. I'm glad I'm not I'm glad I'm not in public like K to 12 school anymore. Because I just came out of school for grad school really in end of 2018, not even that long ago. So it's crazy that there are people who are fully going through. I think though that there are some universities that might just be fully online. Massachusetts does seem to be in person, like Northeastern University, and I think some other ones do seem to be in person. So it's a lot. As we all know, it's a lot. But every new development I see is just like, wow, people are really wilding out here. Both the with some of these rules, but also even students who just don't care, and they're at hotel parties. There are 11 people who were at a party in Massachusetts in a hotel, and they were sent home. They were dismissed for the fall semester, and they weren't even at the school. They were at a hotel party, and I think the university hadn't even started until this week. So this was like a week or two ago that they were at some hotel party in Boston, and I guess they were caught, or somehow their information was found on whatever. They were matched to Northeastern, and they were dismissed. They can appeal it, but there we go. So we're seeing all this play out in real time, all the stuff that people were worried about for the fall semester, and it's like, oh crap, that's now. Like I remember in May, people were talking about what's going to happen for the rest of the spring, what's going to happen with graduation. Then the fall is such a long, mysterious way away. Nope, it's here.
Yeah, I still can't believe it's September. Like I really can't. Like we're in the Burr months. Like I cannot.
Yeah.
I know here in Michigan, totally like you were saying in Massachusetts, it's a lot of the schools are doing hybrid programs where the kids come in two days a week, 2 days, and then the rest of the week is online learning. Like my oldest son, his gym class is part of that 2-day program, and so he goes to school for 2 days, and then for the rest of the time he's at home. My younger two, they're strictly online. Like they're not going to the school, and a lot of the parents that felt the same way. Like my neighbor, their kids are literally roughly around the same age as my kids, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not gonna run that risk because we don't know who has it." And
what they've been doing,
and they could bring it into the classroom. So they're like, nah, not running that risk. No.
Yeah, I think in Hillsborough, Tampa, that I think they're doing like hybrid stuff. I gotta confirm with my sister, but yeah, and like a lot of people have just been like sending their kids back to school. And it's like I understand, like it's like you love your kids, but like you didn't sign up for this, like the 24/7.
True.
True. So, and I get it, but it's like it's just so you know, it's just running that risk because you don't know what people have. You know, like people could have diabetes, have high blood pressure, like obesity, like, and it's just it's just things that like you see like everyday normal people, then all of a sudden like you hear that they're like on a ventilator, and you're like, oh my god, like I just like one of my mom's friends, for example, that happened, and it was just like, oh, I just remember you always talking to her, and then she's on a like, fortunately, the woman's fine, but like it was just like insane,
Right.
and it's just like it just hits so close to home. Like my mom had to like come home from work early once because they found like, I think there was like COVID in the office or something.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. That's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad. All righty. No questions from the chat, which is okay. So more so food for thought. That's okay. So we thank you guys for sitting with us. We thank you guys for watching us. Again, make sure you give us a thumbs up, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Hit that notification bell, because next week we already got our topic. And this was actually a fun one. We're going to be talking about cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. So make sure you stay tuned to that one, because the few things that we've been seeing for the past couple of weeks, it's about time we get it addressed. But at the same time, do it in a way where it's healthy, where, again, you guys in the chat, if you have questions, concerns, or if you notice something that we missed, fire away. And so at least that way, again, we're just having an open dialogue discussion about it. All right? So we're out of here until next week, Tuesday. Again, same time, same channel, 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock, depending on where you're at in the United States or around the world. Doesn't matter. Again, just tune in, lock in. We love you guys. Any final words? L, Toby?
Do your research.
Yeah, do your research. Don't fall for the propaganda. Don't do what I've done before in the past, where I share a Facebook video or post and I say to watch later and then never watch it. Or worse, no, that's okay, because I admit then that I didn't watch it. Don't do what I did, where I would just comment and say something crazy, and then someone says, read the article, and it explains. I'm like, oh crap, I did it again.
I've shared articles that I didn't read.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, like 90% of the things I share is like satirical, like The Onion or Reductress.
Yeah.
But like,
right.
But still, like that's propaganda as well.
Yeah, so just be careful out there.
Agreed. Guilty as charged. Agreed. All right, you guys. That's our time. We will see you next week. Have a good night. And again, do your research.
Yes.
Peace. Good night, y'all.
Good night.